Thanks for tuning in to more pro and college football talk on the OFN Today. As Week 17 in the NFL has several teams fighting for playoff spots and positioning. Ted Sevransky of Covers.com and I will preview all the key games this Sunday with updated odds, injury reports, picks, and more. We'll also talk a little bit college with the playoffs coming up on Saturday as the OFN Today for this Thursday, the 27th of December 2018, starts now. This edition of the OFN Today is brought to you by ourlads.com, home of the best depth charts on the net, and Covers.com, featuring live scores, stats, and odds, and is considered the most convenient and entertaining source for sports news and facts with over 45 million visits a year. All right, so Ted, before we get into the NFL, we haven't really talked a whole lot of college football over the last couple of weeks, so how's the bowl season been for you so far?
It's been pretty good, although I had a bad night last night.
So did Georgia Tech.
Yesterday was not good. I'm sorry?
So did
I
Georgia
Georgia Tech and Cal last night. And that was, and of course I had Boston College, who I liked the start of that game, but it didn't do me any good. But overall it was real good going into yesterday, but yesterday was not a good day.
Yeah, yesterday was a weird day. Yesterday, the day started off with the ridiculous cancellation of the ball game. I mean, they have really gotten – I think they've taken this weather stuff too far. I mean, seriously. I was talking to Jerry Ratcliffe on the previous show about this, but I honestly – I can go back a couple of years, and my entire life, I don't ever remember delays like this, let alone cancellation. It's like the last couple of years, there's been madness with games being delayed and now canceled. I mean – did someone get killed by an electrical storm at a football game that I missed?
Yeah, it's all liability. Make no mistake about it. It's that nobody wants to get sued, and it'll cost you a bunch of money and be a bunch of bad publicity to get sued, and it's easier to cancel a game or to have endless delays than it is to worry about a 8-figure lawsuit.
Yeah, it's a shame for the kids, though. Bowl games canceled. They got to figure something else out after that. I mean, come on. They got to have.
Well, exactly. Can you imagine the seniors?
Yeah.
And both teams. The bowl prep wasn't minor. I mean, these teams geared up. Boston College. I was on Boston College. You were reading the quotes out of that team. I mean, they were ready to come and play, and they came out. Scored a touchdown on the opening drive. Looked good, and then you're like, all right, seniors, thanks. But no thanks.
Yeah, that's pretty weird. And speaking of seniors, how about those Georgia Tech seniors sending Paul Johnson out, a complete loser? I mean, what a terrible effort that was.
And from the get-go, and that was one that shocked me because the quotes were there, the matchups were there. Minnesota missing their best defender.
Yeah.
But it didn't matter. I mean, Georgia Tech didn't execute, and if you don't execute the option, you can't move the football with it. And they were not sharp off the layoff.
Yeah, and the big loser last night was basically the fans because and look, this you knew what you were getting yourself into with that game anyway. But I mean, this is not good for the Pac-12. Just imagine like the last couple of games or two of the last 3 or 4 Pac-12 games you've been able to see was the Pac-12 championship game, which wasn't much better. And then last night's game. I mean, what happened to the old Pac-12 that fireworks in every game? And I don't know. I mean, I guess it is good for the conference because you do need to play defense if you're going to play with the big boys. But where's the offense gone in the Pac-12?
Well, and think of Arizona State's bowl performance against Fresno right here in Las Vegas, which was another. I mean, the MAC has been the worst conference from a betting standpoint. The Pac in bowl games this decade, and the Pac-12's right there with them. They've been a point spread disaster area. They really have, and I thought I didn't see how TCU was going to be able to move the football last night. And I was right; TCU couldn't move the football. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, Cal couldn't move the football either, and it ended up being a debacle of a ball game. And I did a radio spot yesterday. And we were joking about it. I'm like, 1st to 10 wins.
Yeah, sure.
And my coach was like, yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
And that's what it was. 1st to 10 won the game.
And losing Laird was big for California because he's like their best pro prospect on offense. And we're only talking about a guy that might get drafted in the 6th round. So, but he's, he can catch, he can run. He's not a superlative player, but his injury hurt them. And boy, if they get some quarterback play there, I do like Wilcox. I think he's the right coach. He's done a nice job transitioning from Sonny Dykes and all this offense and no defense. So I like the transition, but they got to get a quarterback. And once they do that, maybe they'll be okay. So.
Well, the thing that amazed me, and it really amazed me, and I don't get amazed that often, but when Wilcox came in, it wasn't an infusion of talent on defense. It was basically the same guys that Sonny Dykes was working with.
Yeah.
He had a couple of recruits, whatever. But it wasn't like, okay, we're going to rebuild this whole defense. It was the same guys. Sonny Dykes, literally could not get a stop. That Cal defense was, ranked 120th or something? They were atrocious.
Yeah.
And boom, Wilcox come in, same guys, and all of a sudden the defense is every game getting stops, getting better every week. And I'm like, yeah, if you ever want to see coaching matters.
Yep, that's right.
Just look at Cal's defense. The last year under Dykes, the first year under Wilcox. Now, obviously, the second year under Wilcox, they were great. But even last year, they were good. And it was basically the same personnel as one of the most inept defenses in all of college football.
Any major angles or anything or any sides as far as the two playoff games? They're both double-digit spreads. It is interesting that you get a undefeated Notre Dame team getting a huge number in a playoff game, and I completely understand why. But I still out of those two games, I'm still Notre Dame's been the team that I'm siding with as the team that I think has the best chance of pulling off the upset. I don't at this point until I see it on the field on Saturday trust Trevor Lawrence just yet in a big game against a good defense. And I'm not saying he's going to have a terrible game. I'm just I think they're going to have to score probably 27 or more to win. I think Notre Dame will score at least 24. And then the whole Dexter Lawrence thing, that can't be good, even though I know they got great talent on the defensive line without him. But I think that you've got a couple of teams, and I think these are really good matchups too, where I'm really sure we know what we're going to expect to see here in these two games. I think we could see really good games, we could see really bad games, and I think that's the fun of it.
Well, the history of these contests, when the big boys play the big boys, the history is whoever dominates is going to continue dominating. You don't see the second half rallies in those games. If it's an even battle from the get-go, it's an even battle. But you do see more than your fair share of blowouts in these contests when the superior team exerts their will on their opponent. It's really hard for you don't see the swings, the back and forth like you have in some of these bowl games, and that might be the case in these two contests. Boy, you're looking at these totals, 56.5 for Notre Dame Clemson. That's two pretty good defenses you're talking about.
Sure.
Scoring touchdowns against. And, of course, Oklahoma, Alabama, where the money has come on the under. 79 at the opener. Now we're looking at 77s, even lower
77.
In some spots. Alabama and totals of 77 don't necessarily correlate all that well.
Really? Okay.
When you think about the Crimson Tide defense,
normally,
they do.
Yes.
They've had their problems historically with some of the mobile quarterbacks that they faced, and they'll be facing one here. And certainly I haven't seen a whole lot of teams shut down Oklahoma this season.
No.
But they haven't faced Alabama's defense.
No,
yet.
they
I'll
haven't.
Just put it that way.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. It's that's what's going to be interesting, and that's what I'm saying. You just don't know. Oklahoma's best chance is to do what they did last year with Georgia, but then close the deal. Is maybe Alabama will get caught not understanding exactly what they're getting themselves into because they haven't faced this type of fast-paced, explosive offense all season, and you don't know until you're on the field with them. So if Oklahoma can get off to a lead and get momentum like they got last year against Georgia, they got shot. If not, if all of a sudden they come out, couple of 3-and-outs, Alabama goes up 14-0, it's going to be a disaster. So
it certainly has that potential. But, Kyler Murray, it's hard for me to sell him short. It's also hard for me to bet on the guy that won the Heisman over the better team with the guy that didn't win the Heisman.
History's not good with that situation. No. All right, let's get to the NFL. And we've got now there's about 5 games that really are the more important games we'll go over first. And let's talk about those Eagles, but that was a crazy game last week. It looked like the game was over. Eagles were going to win that game, and then the fumble and opened the door for Houston, and then they get the punt, and then they score again on the bomb, and then you're thinking, wow, this is the Eagle season, isn't it? In a nutshell. And then Foles leads them down the field, and they win the game and save their season for at least another week. They're 6.5-point favorites, something like that, over the Redskins, who have lost 5 out of 6. Good game against Tennessee. Josh Johnson actually didn't play all that poorly until the late interception. The Eagles have won 3 straight up ATS, including 28-13 over the Redskins on Week 13. So they have beaten the Redskins 3 straight. They clinch a playoff berth with a win and a Minnesota loss, and my gut is telling me that is exactly what's going to happen.
It wouldn't shock me. It wouldn't shock me at all. But when you start talking about the concept, hey, let's lay points with this Eagles team. All right. Philly's not winning games by margin. They're winning games the way they won last week.
Mm-hmm.
For the season, wins by more than a touchdown, I think they have 2. Do they have 2? Yeah. They beat they had that win against the Giants on the Thursday night where Eli was off, and they had the win against the Redskins in the first meeting between these two teams, or in the month back at home. Philly's not a win-by-margin team. They haven't been all season. They're not an easy team to lay points. And all the teams that you are must win to get in Week 17, they're all must win for one reason only, because they've been mediocre all year. So teams like Philadelphia, for me, this week, nuh-uh. You're paying a tax, you're paying a premium for a mediocre team on the highway against a divisional opponent. I know everything stinks in Washington, and it's been a horrible year, and everything's fallen apart, and the injuries have been to the point that it's a disaster, and yet all the Redskins are doing is hanging around. Don't be fooled by the final score last week. Washington was in that game right to the end before a late pick, made it a 9-point margin. They were right in the game. They won the game straight up the week before. Redskins haven't quit. I can only take Washington. But am I going to get to the window with the Redskins? Probably not. Not at 6.5. It would take, the market would have to move to 7 and maybe even 7.5 for me to get real interest in the Redskins.
Yeah, I mean, the odds are the only thing that I'd be concerned about. I'm definitely going on the Eagles side to win this football game. But, yeah, obviously the odds are an issue based on the way, as you mentioned, that their season is gone. Redskins, they're just finding ways to lose now, and then the whole Swearinger thing this week is not good. That can't play well in the locker room. 1 game to go. Are there going to be players that are going to be really pissed that this happened to their teammate, and is that going to affect their play in their final game? Where you want to see them get up and play and show the type of emotion that you're going to need to show against a team that's desperate for a win. And I don't know, maybe just a handful of players that aren't going to play at their optimum level will all be what it'll take for the Eagles to take advantage. And throw in, again, the fact that Foles and this team just has something going on. This connection here just seems to be just lightning in a bottle. But, yeah, I see where you're coming from, the odds, no question about it. On the flip side, again, if Philly does win, it forces Minnesota to win. And Minnesota's about a 5-point favorite at home against Chicago. And they've won 8 out of 9. Now, this game, and we talked about this last week, this game does mean something, even though, the Rams losing to the 49ers, that's probably not going to happen. But, I don't think the players, knowing there's a bye week, I don't think they're going to go into it as long as they start. And I haven't heard anything yet. I don't know if you have, as far as anybody not starting. And why wouldn't you? You're trying to get a number 2 seed. You should start these guys. And if that's the case, we knowing the way Minnesota has performed this year, and yes, they've won the last 2 with their new coordinator, which is nice. But look who they've beaten. To expect. Well, here we go again. Kirk Cousins against a good football team. I kind of think the Bears might beat them.
I wouldn't be shocked either way in this ballgame, but you make an interesting point when you talk about some of the issues that you face in Week 17 with they must win. Is their opponent going to come? Well, they're going to start. I know the Bears are going to start with their starters. I don't know that in the fourth quarter with the game on the line and when the point spreads get decided, sometimes you have a game, that's over from the opening kick, or the first drive of the third quarter, the other team quit, and that's that. But the majority of point spread decisions are decided after halftime and in the fourth quarter. And I don't, if the Rams are up 3 scores, They keeping his starters out there?
That's a good point.
I don't know.
That's a good point.
You don't know.
Sure.
Nobody knows. And that's why, when I say Week 17 is a minefield, this is not a week where I'm betting up and down the card. If I find a handful of good opportunities, I'm interested. But there is much more uncertainty this week than the average week. Much more volatility, many more questions that you can't answer before kickoff. And can't even, obviously what we do is educated guesses, playing the probability, playing the odds. And in this situation where I don't know what this coach is going to do, he has no track record, we don't know what the score of the other game is going to be, we could see Chicago's A game for a half, and then we could see their backups the second half. It concerns me enough to stay away from the game completely.
By the way, do you buy into anything from the coach's perspective regarding who they'd rather play?
No.
In the playoff game?
No.
Okay, so you don't think they're going to go, well, Philly wins and we beat Minnesota, we got to play the Eagles, as opposed to just us just laying down and letting Minnesota win so we can play them next week?
I have yet to see a circumstance in which it was clear to me that a coach made that decision.
Okay.
And certainly when you're talking about, this Nagy's not been, he hasn't been a head coach for 20 years.
No, he's not.
First year, first time. This
no
is
evidence.
He's going through this.
Yeah.
To say, all right, well, yeah, we're going to lay down here.
Yeah.
I don't see it. Not before kickoff. But again, after kickoff, factors could come into play to change things completely, which is not always the case, weeks 1 through week 16.
And the thing that's interesting about this particular matchup, if you want to go the Bears side, is that because they have such a good defense, that if they even can at least get off to a lead in the game early, even though I'm not saying that starters won't come out on defense, but fact is that you can't look. There's only so many players you can dress. So they're going to be still halfway. At least half of your defense will still be pretty decent players if you rest about half of them. So if they can get off to a lead, then maybe that defense, even if you start resting your players, maybe that defense can still hold on. Because you look at the other side, if Minnesota gets off to a 2-score lead and it's halftime and the Rams are up by 10 or 14, I think we all be pretty confident that he'll start resting players. That's what I would think.
But confident versus I think is two very different feelings. You know what I mean? Confident is, yeah, I'm confident. I think is, well, that's what I think. The fact is we have nothing to base it on.
No.
We have no track record. There's no comments from Nagy other than that. I'm going to start my guys. That's all we know. So in terms of level of confidence, people bet everything.
How about this? You can go with the first half
on
line.
everything. But in terms of, is this a high confidence wager? Is this a step up wager? No, I hope not. Unless you got some good info that I don't have.
Yeah, you could even just say, hey, you know what? I'll go with the first half line if you like the Bears, and you don't
in game.
You can go absolutely go your live betting. All right. So, before we get to the next game, both of these games are 4:00. I do need to say this. I mean, seriously, do you have to do this to us? Do you have to put all of the big games at 4:00? Do you have to do that? I mean, can't you figure out some other way? Seriously. I mean, there's like no significant games at 1:00. Everything's at 4. I mean, okay, I can record 4 or 5 games at the same time. That's fine. I can do that, but there's a lot of people that just can't do that. And that's, I just think that's, I don't know why they would want to do that anyway. You would think that they'd get better ratings and, more activity with traffic and money and so forth if they were able to play a couple of meaningful games at 1:00.
I can't answer that.
Yeah.
I mean, the decisions the NFL makes scheduling-wise are all based on money, and they have figured out that this is the way to make the most money off of Week 17, to draw the most interest.
And look, I understand, too, if you've got it, there are a couple of teams, based on the teams that are fighting each other that you want to put, like Chicago and the Rams, you want to put them at the same time because you don't want it to be a game where the Rams are playing, even though I think what probably would have been better, I'm just guessing, is just why not put Chicago? Why couldn't you have put Chicago and Minnesota let's see. Let's say if you could put Chicago, Minnesota at 1 and Philly, Washington at 1. Why couldn't you have done that? Because Chicago then, would have to say to themselves, well, we don't know what the Rams are going to do, so we have to play. We have to play the whole game. So wouldn't that make more sense? Because and then for Minnesota, Philly, just put them together at 1 o'clock because they're the two teams fighting each other for that final spot. I don't get.
I like it.
Yeah,
it works for me. But again, as consistent fans and watchers, it's hard for us to recognize how the decisions get made for TV stuff. All right, the decisions for TV stuff have nothing to do with fans. The fans are going to watch anyway. What the leagues are trying to do is get the casual viewers, get the guys that don't watch NFL every Sunday, that only tune in when there's something that piques their interest. And that's what turns ratings into big ratings and monster ratings. The fans, the guys like us, the bettors, the fantasy players, we're watching anyway. It doesn't matter. So the decisions that get made often get made to the detriment of what we want because they're trying to attract the casual fans that can, up the ratings by another point or two that make all the difference when it comes to getting advertising dollars.
And the two games at 4 o'clock in the AFC that matter, Baltimore, Cleveland, Cincy, Pittsburgh. And, of course, Cleveland-Baltimore is the big one of the two, with Baltimore controlling their own destiny. They've now won 5 out of 6. So if they win, they win the North. And what's good for Baltimore, too, is they got to feel pretty good about last week's game for two reasons. One is that now they're one step away from winning the North. Two, that they are locked in, where if they win this game, they're going to host the Chargers next week, the team that they basically were able to defensively just manhandle. And that must feel really good. Now, they got to get back Cleveland first, but they're in a really good position for the next 2 weeks if they can just take care of Cleveland here in the first week. Now, they got to exercise demons. They have been in this situation before, not just last year against the Bengals. They've had this situation for the last several years. They haven't been able to win big games at home as well. So people can say anything they want about being at home. It don't matter. I bet you the Ravens would probably be better on the road this week because they could probably have more pressure at home after what happened to them last year. So I don't care about the home thing. It is a 6-point spread. Cleveland's playing some really good football. They've won 5 out of 6, just like the Ravens. But Ravens are just dialed in right now, and I don't care how good Cleveland's playing. The Ravens are playing better.
Certainly the markets are with you on that. We saw an initial surge towards Cleveland, and as soon as the money came on the Browns, it went right back on Baltimore. So there's been a fair bit of sharp money supporting the Ravens, and they've been on this Baltimore for much of this late season run. From a defensive standpoint, Baltimore's numbers pretty well head and shoulders ahead of everybody else over the course of the last month or so. And when your defense is playing at that level, it allows you to have an offense that, as we saw with TCU last night in college. When the defense is blowing up the line of scrimmage every play, okay, you can turn the ball over a bunch of times and have no passing game and still find a way to win. I believe Greg Williams when he said that this is we're going to treat this like our playoff game.
Oh yeah, sure.
And when you look at the course of this Browns season, when you look at the first meeting between these two teams, 12-9, that was Joe Flacco, but a tight defensive struggle. I wouldn't be surprised if this is that kind of a ball game. I don't know that Mayfield's going to be able to make the plays downfield he's been making in recent weeks. That being said, I'm in no rush to bet against Baker Mayfield's an underdog right now. I'll tell you that flat out. Who's the must-win team here? Baltimore. Why are they must-win? Because they're mediocre. What happens with the must-win teams? You're paying a tax. You're paying a premium to support a mediocre team. And I understand that Baltimore's defense has been phenomenal, but I also like this run that the Browns have been on of late. It's not anything surprising if you've looked at the talent level they have. Cleveland's got the playmakers. And for all the success the Ravens had last week against the Chargers, they had success shutting down Kansas City. They had success shutting down L.A. Spot-wise, those games felt different. Certainly it was a terrible spot for the Chargers, and they played like it. This is not a terrible spot for the Browns for whatever that's worth. I'm not so sure that Baltimore gets the spot edge, especially, as you mentioned, given their Week 17 struggles repeatedly throughout the Harbaugh era.
Yeah, and this isn't your typical rookie quarterback matchup either. If it was, I would be like, hey, you know what? Mayfield's better than this guy here. And therefore, the way they're playing, sure, Cleveland, absolutely. They're just as hot. They got the better rookie quarterback. I'm going with Cleveland. But Lamar Jackson is not your typical rookie quarterback as far as him as a passer. And he right now, and I think you'd agree with me based on the experience of watching football over your career as well, the league is not going to catch up to Lamar Jackson until next year. Till the offseason, till teams got time to look over film, because it's a week-to-week thing. And it's, one coordinator going up against one. Nobody's looking at Lamar Jackson. The Chargers didn't look at Lamar Jackson until the week of Lamar Jackson. Same thing with the Browns. They didn't look at this until the week of Lamar Jackson. But they'll have the whole offseason to look at him, and then Lamar Jackson's going to have to throw the football. If he doesn't, he's going to be in big trouble. But for this situation, it's still a good thing. It's still a good role for Jackson and the Ravens. So I don't have to compare the rookie quarterbacks in that sense, because if I did, like normal quarterbacks, I'd favor Cleveland here. But again, this is a running offense that the Ravens have that has not been stopped. And it has afforded Jackson the ability to make a couple of big passes, too, because of that effort in the run game, as he's been able to do better and better each week. So that's why I give the Ravens a good chance. And you know what? It also probably helps the Ravens that they're a majority running football team, because, as you know, it's also easier to not feel as much pressure on your offense when you're just running the ball, as opposed to having to do everything that is there in the passing game. That might be a little trickier when you're dealing with pressure.
Yeah, I mean, Lamar Jackson has thrown 2 completions of longer than 30 yards this season. If Baltimore, their entire success is based on the defense. Okay, Lamar Jackson's there. The offense is able to, and they haven't been facing deficits at any point during this span. It's 6 games. They've won 5 of them. The one loss was to KC. But if you ask me, and in overtime,
and they should have won that game.
They totally should have won that game. But they've been playing largely with a lead. They have not faced adversity here. And the one thing the Browns can do, they can quick strike. Cleveland's got the big play potential here.
Yeah,
Baltimore's got to grind, and the grinding's working.
Yeah.
It's worked for them real well over the course of the last month. We'll see if it works for them to win by margin here. It's going to be their defense that covers this point spread. The offense
absolutely
isn't going to do it.
Yeah. By the way, what I don't even think it matters about this game. Do you agree with me that it comes down to, okay, if Lincoln Riley wants a job, it's his. If he doesn't, Greg Williams is the man next year?
I have no idea. When it comes to coaching searches,
well, should he? That's it. So I'm asking your opinion. I don't have any information. I'm just going on. Do you think Greg Williams? I would.
If I have a good college job where I'm locked in for life, okay, Lincoln Riley's locked into. Oklahoma could be mediocre for 10 years before they started calling for his head. I would not leave that job, unless you're ready for wanderlust. You're ready to do something else with your career. But if you're locked in somewhere like Lincoln Riley is, at Oklahoma is right now, and you're to trade that for the uncertainty of the NFL. NFL, what's the average coaching length? 2 years, 2.5 years?
Oh, well, you have to be special. And there's no question about that. But let's say Lincoln Riley. But see, I guess my question was, do you think it should be, based on what you've seen from Greg Williams, what he's done with this Brown team, and the offense, and yes, you can say what you want, but the offense, the whole staff has done great since he's taken over. Do you think that, because most people believe that if Lincoln Riley wants the job, it's going to be his. So my point is if he doesn't want the job, do you think Greg Williams has earned it and he should be the coach next year?
Well, the only reason Greg Williams hasn't gotten another coaching job is because of all the nonsense that happened in New Orleans, where he was targeting guys that got suspended for a year.
Yeah.
He's been a head coach before. He's certainly someone that has done an admirable job in adverse circumstances this year, and I think he absolutely deserves a good look at that position. Whether I would say, all right, well, let's get Lincoln Riley over him, I mean, the one thing Williams does come with, he comes with baggage. And he comes with PR baggage.
Oh, I don't think that's going to be – I don't even think it's going to be close. I think if Lincoln Riley says, I want to be the coach of the Cleveland Browns, he's the coach of the Cleveland Browns.
I don't disagree with that.
Yeah. But I kind of agree with you, though. I kind of, especially from the people I've talked to, I'm leaning towards him not going to the NFL. Because he can.
Why would you?
Yeah, he could always go to the NFL in 5 years. He's young. He can go in 10 years. He doesn't have to
the
rush.
NFL's not going anywhere.
Yeah, it's not going anywhere. Again, it's going to be tough for him to say no to Baker Mayfield in Cleveland, Jets and Sam Darnold and money in New York, and I can even go and coach Aaron Rodgers. That's going to be the tough part. But if he says no this year, I think he's in it for the long haul at Oklahoma.
I don't blame him.
What do you think? Cincinnati-Pittsburgh, you think that'll be a blowout? 14?
All the Bengals do is hang around in these games.
That's true.
They're
3-0.
23 nothing last week.
That's right.
And what happens? Who got the money? Cincy backers got the money.
That's right.
Marvin Lewis is incredible. You look at Marvin Lewis, and they haven't made the playoffs the last couple of years. Look at the Cincy down the stretch. Every year, cover numbers, hanging tough. They have never quit on Marvin Lewis. For all the criticism we have of the guy, I haven't seen Cincy quit on him. And, Pittsburgh could blow him out. They're certainly the better team. They have the capability, but do you trust the Steelers to win a game by more than 2 touchdowns now? I don't.
No, especially like you said. I mean, with the 3-0 ATS with Driscoll, so they're actually been hanging in there even with the backup quarterback. I am concerned about no Green, no Boyd. I mean, their wide receiver situation is pretty weak, and Eifert's even been gone. But they've got Mixon, and this is a rivalry. And then we don't even know how Pittsburgh feels. How about this? Let's say, and I don't think it's going to happen, but let's flip it to what we were talking about the other 2 games. Let's say Baltimore has a double-digit lead at halftime in the third quarter or something, and this is a close game, Pittsburgh-Cincinnati, and I don't know, maybe they'll show the score at the game, and they'll flash it, and they'll say Baltimore's winning big against Cleveland. I wonder how that affects Pittsburgh.
Probably not positively, but again, with the games playing at the same time, if the Ravens are up 3 touchdowns like this, like the Tomlin's going to bench his starters. It's not a situation like you could see in Chicago.
No, that's true.
It's a matter of got to win the game.
Yeah, it's just a matter of are they going to feel like playing? They're not sitting down. No, that's true.
And I mean, one thing that's very real. We always talk about, are you motivated? Are you this, or that? Once the game gets going, the adrenaline starts running, and you make a play or two. Sometimes the motivation issues can go away in a real hurry. But I don't think there are any motivation issues for Pittsburgh this week. They're from all indications they're coming to play. But I hesitate to lay that price with
a big
the team.
Number. Yeah.
I mean, the last time Pittsburgh won a game by more than 2 touchdowns. Well, I guess they had one since October.
Well,
that game against Carolina, but that was a Thursday night game when the Panthers weren't ready.
Yeah. So
that's only when they have by more than I think more than 1 score.
Yeah, I would roll the dice with Cincinnati in the points here because I think this is a tricky game. I would even give Cincinnati a small enough percentage or a high enough percentage to actually keep this game close enough that they can pull off an upset because I don't know how Pittsburgh is right now. They're so fragile right now, especially after what happened last week and every week and. That's why I have no problem. We've talked about this whole season with this team, even when things were going well, that this is the problem with this team. They're a very fragile team. And right now things aren't going well. So, hey, if Cincinnati can keep it close by halftime, we could have a football game.
Sure. Although, I mean, if you look at that Bengals injury report, it's really hard to get the window betting Cincinnati.
Yeah, that is that's
it's an ugly looking injury report, man. It looks like they're the Redskins and the Bengals.
Yeah, that's the concern. And then the win and your in-game Colts in Tennessee. This is all about Mariota, and even if Mariota plays, he's not going to be 100%. So who knows? He can get just one hit, and the feeling of that stinger will come back, and then you're done. I mean, I'm sorry, but you're not winning without Mariota. You're just not. Casey's out now.
That's the key injury. You're talking about Mariota. Mariota doesn't matter. Mariota's my powering differential between Mariota and Gabbert is half a point. All right, you can tell me you really think that Mariota's like way better than Blaine Gabbert?
I just don't ever see Gabbert in Tennessee winning.
Half a point is my difference between those two quarterbacks. This isn't Aaron Rodgers is out and we better adjust the point spread two touchdowns or Brady's out or something. This is a guy maybe the market's just a point and a half. I might be low, but Gabbert can run the offense and Mariota's no stud. The key injury is Jurrell Casey because with Casey's the run stuffer.
Yeah.
And when Indy's two-dimensional, when Marlon Mack has room to run, the Colts, you can't beat the Colts. The Colts can beat anybody in the NFL. If you can stop them, make them one-dimensional, the Jags did it, and that's how they shut them out. But when Indy's running the football, you can't. And Casey, that's the injury that matters, not Mariota's a stiff. Gabbert's every bit as good as he is. So I'm not worried about the quarterback injury for Tennessee at all. But that being said, I don't want any part of it. The Titans aren't winning this game. The only question is how much Indy wins it by.
What's the point spread right now?
Colts are laying 3.5.
3.5. Okay.
Yeah.
I still kind of. I'm not going to worry about the points in this game. I think the Colts are destined to win this game. Especially, now Casey's out. See, if Casey was still there, that'd be different. Again, look, I see where you're coming from. Mariota doesn't influence me at all in games. Problem is, like I was saying, every time I see Gabbert play, I gotta check his record because I don't even know when the last time I remember him winning a game. So that's the problem. Is they got to get a backup quarterback. Let's just put it that way. You can't trust Mariota anymore. The guy gets hurt every year, at least a handful of games. You need a real young backup quarterback. They got to draft someone and groom him, and maybe he takes over for Mariota in 2 years because Mariota is no good. But Luck is just on fire right now, and the Colts are on fire, and they're playing good enough defense, and they can come back when they want to. So this. I actually think the Colts and the Ravens could meet in the championship game this year. That's how good I think, especially the Colts, the way they're playing with Luck.
And it shows the weakness of some of the high contenders in the AFC right now, where it's hard to trust Kansas. Kansas City's not the same team that they were right now. New England doesn't look right. The Chargers, It's hard to trust Phillip Rivers and the Chargers in a playoff game. There's room for teams at the bottom to make some noise in the AFC. I'm with you 100%. Oh, by the way, when did Blaine Gabbert do something good? I could have sworn he led the Tennessee to a come-from-behind win last week. Was that just last week? Yes, it was. Was it Blaine Gabbert? Yes, it was. Did he have a better QB rating than Mariota in that game? Yes, he did. Last week Gabbert was the guy that led Tennessee to the win.
All right. Well, I guess we have to go back to when he actually started a game and had to prepare, and you can prepare for him all week.
Now you got me fired up on Gabbert. And look, I'm not trying to make a case that Gabbert's all that, but Gabbert's been a very serviceable QB in the backup QB. He won twice as a starter last year. He beat the Jags. He beat the Jags last year.
No, but that was when? In
November with Arizona.
Oh, with Arizona. Okay, I was thinking of Tennessee because I know they didn't play in November.
Yeah, no, this is last year. I'm just saying, when did Gabbert do it? Last year, he was a backup quarterback who got jobs, who won games against good teams.
Yeah, you know what? Defense. Last year's Gabbert actually was the first time, and you definitely got to credit Arians for turning whatever he was into whatever he is now. Because because the transformation took place in San Francisco the year before with the 40. It was like 2015 where he was so awful in Jacksonville. He was, worse than Bortles in Jacksonville, which is hard to imagine. And he got to San Fran and sat on the bench, and then he got in with injury, and all of a sudden he was, again, not great, not good, serviceable, decent, not going to cost you the game. That's the way he's been the last 3 or 4 years. He's never going to be. He's not a star. I'm not saying Blake Garrett's a star. I'm saying he's no different from him. There's half a point between him and Mariota. That's all I'm saying. All right, and then as far as the rest of the games, being a Jet fan, I actually think the Jets could win this football game. And what I mean by that is they could ruin their draft status. They could do that by winning a meaningless game for them and sending Todd Bowles off a winner. And because the Patriots are vulnerable, we know they're vulnerable. This is a rivalry game. Darnold's playing lights out. I'm telling you, I can see it. The thing that, of course, is the big deal is having Darnold go up against Belichick in his first ever Belichick versus Darnold matchup, which is never good for rookie quarterbacks. But I'm telling you, I think they got a shot.
So my clients and I cashed a ticket with the Buffalo Bills last week. And if ever there was a wrong side, Buffalo, I mean, they couldn't do anything for the entire game.
Yeah, I know.
The Bills did absolutely nothing until the final drive when New England was playing a little prevent, and they finally got the ball in the end zone. Okay, it was absolutely a wrong side. And you know what? I cashed a winning bet because the Patriots, they're not the Patriots. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah,
they're not. Whatever you think, this great Patriots team is not a great Patriots team right now.
Nope.
And so Brady's not right. And, there was confusion on the sidelines in New England last week. You know what I mean? Never in the Belichick era. There's guys bickering. That's it. You don't see that in New England. Patriots aren't right. I will not lay 2 touchdowns with New England if the Jets are pass for me.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Jacksonville-Houston game actually could mean something because if New England does lose, then Houston can move into that bye role. They're a 7.5 point favorite. Any reason why you can't see Houston winning bigger? I mean, Jacksonville, come on. I know they won last. Who cares? I mean, seriously, don't you think Houston should win this game by double digits?
I mean, the money's pouring. The wise guys are loading up on Jacksonville, down to 6.5
on
now.
Jacksonville?
Yeah, down to 6.5.
Why?
Your guess is good as mine.
Okay.
Because they beat Miami last week.
Oh, okay.
So obviously, if you can beat Miami, it means you can go to Houston and win there.
I guess so, right?
Yes, I'm saying that sarcastically.
Of course,
I'm with you. I want no part of the underdog. I want no part of a Week 17 Jags team facing an opponent that needs the win in order to clinch the division. And
then the only other games that mean anything for positioning: Chargers, Kansas City. They're playing their opponents. Chargers. Kansas City's a heavy favorite. Any reason to believe that? Who would you go with? Which dog would you go? Would you side with the most out of those two? Denver
looked like a pretty dead team on Monday night.
They did. Yes, they did.
And when you have a lame duck coach and a dead team and a short week and a team coming off a loss, I don't want the Broncos this week, okay? So if I'm picking between the two, it would be the Raiders. And again, the Chiefs aren't right either.
No, they're not.
Okay? Everything that we keep, the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. Yes, Mahomes is a special talent. But what made this year's Chiefs team so unique was that they surrounded a special talent at QB with extraordinary skill position weapons. Mm-hmm. A bunch of guys who can take it to the house when you get the ball in their hands in space. There's not one of those guys that's healthy right now. Not one of them that they had, whether it's Hill or Watkins or Hunt's gone, obviously. I mean, you go on and on down the line for Kansas City. None of their playmakers are anywhere near 100%. And that's not the team, the October Chiefs is not the December Chiefs.
Big surprise.
But Oakland gave him a battle the first meeting.
They did. 40-33.
Yeah. So I would guess if I had to pick the dog between the two, I would be the Raiders plus as opposed to the Broncos plus.
Plus, you're getting an extra touchdown.
Yeah,
which isn't bad in that situation. So I agree with you there. All right, sounds good, Ted. Appreciate it as always. Next week we'll preview the playoffs, so that's good. And then we'll also preview the championship game. Did you get a kick out of the interviews, the Packers interviews, Pagano and what's his name? Caldwell?
Jim Caldwell?
Yeah.
So I've been talking all week about what a great coach Jim Caldwell is, and everyone just laughs at me.
That's me too.
It's from Bill Simmons. Bill Simmons didn't like him, and at the time, Bill Simmons was so popular. Everyone read Bill Simmons every week, and Bill Simmons' narrative took over. Jim Campbell doesn't blink, and Jim Campbell doesn't show any emotion and all that. Caldwell, I should say. This is all you need to know. Look at the Lions last year and the year before. Same team. Look at the Lions this year without him. I'm a Caldwell believer. I think he's a vastly underrated guy.
Where do you think he'll go? You think?
I have no idea. That being said, would I hire him in Green Bay? Probably not. Maybe I would.
I mean, he did win it with a superstar quarterback with Manning.
He sure did.
So maybe that wouldn't be a bad idea for Green Bay. I think McCarthy makes sense in Arizona. I guess he's already. I mean, they're already linking him to Arizona. I don't even know if has he already interviewed there. I don't think so, right? Because I know they haven't fired.
Why
the coach.
would anyone hire Mike McCarthy?
He's going to get hired. He's going to get hired. He'll be a coach next year. Absolutely, he'll be a head coach. Because you know why?
Hires him is gonna...
Well, here's the reason why.
Les Miles continues to find work too. I guess.
There's nothing out there. That's it. I'm telling you, as a Jet fan, I've looked. There's not. There's no.
Well, there's nothing out there.
No, there's no experience.
Who's the not hyped candidate? One like Belichick was, ultra hyped going to New England. He got fired in Cleveland.
No, I mean it's Lincoln Riley, and that's it. I mean, once Lincoln Riley goes, then it's Mike McCarthy. It's look, John DeFilippo was a top candidate like about 3 weeks ago. And that shows you how bad the coaching situation is. That's why I'm saying Pagano and Colwell are those are going to be the biggest names as far as former head coaches, besides McCarthy. I'm telling you, there's nothing out there. They're going to Zach Taylor, the quarterback coach for the Rams, who's like 35 years old, who's done nothing except coach on the Ram staff for a year or two. So that makes him a hot candidate. I guess he's going to be a great coach because he's coached under McVay for a year or two.
Well, that's all it takes.
And Bieniemy's going to be a hot candidate. Why? Because he's the offensive coordinator for Chiefs for 1 year. That's it. I'm telling you, these are the hot candidates. So that's why McCarthy will be a head coach next year. I think Arizona makes sense. All right. So, Ted, I appreciate it. And enjoy the playoff games in college football. Enjoy Week 17, and we'll talk about the championship game next week in college football and the playoffs. We'll have a playoff preview predictions. How about that?
I look forward to it.
Thanks, Ted.
Cheers.
All right, Ted Sevransky, a.k.a. Teddy Covers, joining us here on the OFN Today. And so we get to some serious NFL talk next week. We'll go over our playoff picks. By the way, Teddy, and I will bring this up next week because it's playoff time. We'll take a look at Super Bowl futures and such. But Ted's pick to win the Super Bowl was New Orleans. Ted's sleeper pick, Kansas City, at 35-1. So Ted's looking pretty good there, I'll tell you that. Because the Saints are looking real good in the NFC. AFC, a different story. All right, so thanks to Teddy Sevransky. I'm Greg DePalma. You're listening to OFN Today on the R-Lads Football Radio Network. We'll talk to you again tomorrow with Dave Koken and Mark Lawrence. Also, of course, from Covers.com.